ValveTime.net.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of ValveTime TalkTime. It's an introduction to the people behind the YouTube channel for ValveTime. Not only that, but we'll be talking about some of the biggest topics of the week and giving you some insight from us, the people who know the most, perhaps, about Valve topics. We spend a week, well, who's laughing? Come on, we do know a little bit.
Everybody.
So yeah, firstly we will start off by sort of introducing the team, the people behind ValveTime, the YouTube channel, the website, the art, the recording, everything. So let's start off with James. James should be someone familiar to all of you. Hi, James.
Hi. So I guess we decided that I'm presenter. I also do occasionally writing, sometimes behind the behind the scenes stuff. So a little bit of script writing and whatnot. So I obviously, obviously to some, but I do the ValveTime news roundups, and also if we do a special presentation of something, if there's need for someone to be presenting and talking during it, then I go ahead and do so. That's really about it. Yeah,
I recognise your voice, James. I have heard it before.
Oh, hi. Thank you.
So yeah, James, everyone should know already, James. He's basically all of ValveTime to you guys. But there are actually more people behind it, surprisingly.
Yeah, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Nick. Hi, Nick.
I'm the video editor. I do a lot of the writing for the YouTube channel. I do a lot of reporting for the front page. I sort of edit everything together. I work with James and John, who you're going to meet in a minute. Sort of producing all the shows and getting everything done on time and all that sort of stuff.
And you've been around the community pretty much since, well, we used to be called Half-Life2.net since 2003.
2007 is when I started playing Steam games. So I started playing Gmod then, and then I was like, what is this Half-Life? And then I started playing it, and I was like, holy.
From Gmod you came, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because my friend used to play it, and I used to play it at his house, and then I was like, I need this game, I need this.
That's Nick. So the last guy with us here today, anyway, is John. So do you want to introduce yourself, John?
You're saving the best for last. I like this. Well, let's see here. I do all the art for the website. That's basically it.
Not just the website.
And the Facebook.
Well, not the website.
You do the cover pages, yeah.
Yeah, I do everything for the YouTube, Twitter, the banners. Most artwork is done by me.
I think you're selling yourself short first time.
Yeah, well, maybe. I will occasionally, though, do a news post here and there, but most of the time I'll just work on my art. Or when Nick yells at me every day to get something done.
Not yell, but quietly,
In all caps, John, get this done
it's
now.
Definitely yelling.
Yes. So that's the core team on the YouTube channel essentially, and then there's myself. I should have introduced myself. I'm Glenn, also known as Hectic Glenn. I've been on the site since about 2004, but I wasn't staffed till about 2005-06. I'm lead editor of I mostly work on the website.
Mostly AFK is what you are.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And basically, I sort of just I dabble in the YouTube stuff as well. I do some of the scripts, most of the earlier scripts, but not so many recently. But I try and do. Go and watch the Half-Life Alpha video. It was brilliant. Doesn't everyone think it was excellent? Wasn't it really well written?
Yeah, it was.
Not for lack of your script writing abilities.
Oh.
I had to rewrite everything in that.
There was a lot of problems that I appreciate. I wrote that very late at night. But yeah, we'll go into perhaps a bit more of that later on in terms of how much James knows about what we send him. But
yeah, that might come up at some point.
Yeah, we'll bring that up in maybe later episodes when we ask him about his Dota 2 knowledge, which I think is fairly thin, James. Is that not true?
I may have never played it or the original even once.
To be fair, I haven't played the original either, so...
James is like, what's Dota? What is that?
No, I'm pretty sure I pronounced it Dota for a while.
Oh,
I had a lot of problems with
I think we'll... James doesn't have Dota 2 on his Steam account, so if anyone has any free Dota 2 invites, we'll put a link in the description to his Steam account, so please
James,
send all your invites
why do you just
to him.
ask me? I have 6 of them.
Yeah, well, if you have 6 guys or more, please send all of them to James, because he's looking for invites.
Open trading window, send 9, there you go.
So that's all of us guys here. We have a lot more people who also work on the website, supposedly. Some great guys will introduce you in later episodes who will come on some cameo appearances and introduce themselves. But they mostly work on the forums, they do news posting, all sorts of other stuff. Perhaps the people that make the music and other things will come on in the future as well, so you'll get to meet a couple more of them. But that's just a general introduction to the people that actually work on the YouTube, and you can perhaps expect to hear from us most weeks. So yeah, the general subject, we're going to talk about the biggest talking points in the week generally. We'll pick up on things that you'll see in our roundup. And this week we're going to talk about the SteamBox. And there's been quite a lot of talk about this week. There's a couple of other topics as well, but we thought pick up on this one first. So our question this week, and you guys are welcome to sort of comment and tell us what you think as well, but is there a place in your life for the SteamBox? Would you have one? Would you buy one? Would it replace your gaming computer? Would you rather game in the lounge? I don't think I would personally.
Do you have a lounge? I thought you lived in a flat.
No, I do have a living quarters, but everything's en suite. So, you can touch the sink from the bed. It's always a bad thing.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'll throw that out to. Do you want to start, Nick? Or would you have SteamBox?
I don't know. Depending on price, maybe. I think with the one that was being shown so far, the Piston. What is it, like $1,000? No, there's no way. Because
is that $1,000?
I think one of them. I think there's generally the XI3 setup. I think there's usually like 3 price brackets or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought the idea behind that was the equipment inside accounted up to about $1,000, but a lot of consoles sell at a loss, so it very well could be significantly lower than that.
Yeah, well, I imagine Valve would sell it at a loss just to get people onto Steam and experience the Steam sales. But back to the original question. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably get one, not as a main gaming, PC or anything like that, because I've just bought a big, proper gaming rig, so I don't need one. But I do play the occasional game, on an Xbox or whatever for whatever reason. But that's generally just sitting right next to us. But I'd probably replace, the console. I wouldn't replace the PC, but I'd be more willing to replace, say an Xbox or whatever else with, an additional little console, which I just have as, use it with a controller. Play all my existing games on it, and just, have it somewhere where I can just kind of laze around rather than sitting in a big, office chair all day, where I can sit on, say, a sofa or an armchair. That's probably how I'd do it. I mean,
we should clarify also that this device is meant to be modular, isn't it? So that $1,000 price bracket, I mean, it will vary based on which model you go for and how modular it is. And we should also clarify that we incorrectly reported this week that this was the SteamBox.
Yeah,
it's one of many.
Yeah.
It's, as far as we were, sort of a tendering process where Valve are making their own, almost what Google do, where they have their own device, a flagship device, and perhaps they tender out the concept to other companies to try and try their hand at a couple of variants of it as well. So yeah, this isn't the fixed one. To look at this one and say this is what you'd base your decision on would be wrong.
Well, that's what I was saying about the price. I mean, because if this one's apparently based off $1,000, sorry, one that XI3 already sell. If it was at that price, there'd be no way, because just for the thing, I'd maybe use once a week. Who's playing music? No. Turn your phones off, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Anyway, I think $1,000 is a little bit too hefty for something that's essentially a carry in your bag or a living room console. It's a bit too much, personally.
Yeah. What about you, John? Would you have a SteamBox? Is there a void in your life for it? You don't have a console anymore, do you?
The console I have is a Dreamcast, so yeah.
Going way back.
We're going way back.
So, are you ready to replace the Dreamcast with a SteamBox?
Well, not since I just bought my new gaming PC, no.
So this seems to be the problem. Everyone's got new PCs. Yeah. So.
But I think eventually, when I, have the extra cash and all, I think it'd be worth looking into. I mean, especially, I know the point of, if you want to take it somewhere, that's the easiest thing. You don't have to haul your huge PC around with you. That's the one positive about it. But now, if you want to go to a LAN party, maybe people will start bringing their SteamBox with them.
Mm-hmm. Now we've got good PCs between us, but let's see. James, how good's your PC?
How's those hamsters running, James?
Maybe it was his phone that went off.
I think it was his phone, yeah. So we'll leave him, and he can kind of just be in the intro, and then
James being so professional right now.
Says you two who arrived, but what was it, an hour late? The pair of you?
We won't go over that. That didn't happen.
It's basically the people at home. If you ever feel like working with Glenn or John here, don't expect them to arrive on time or do any work by the deadlines you give them.
Cause see, you know, we run by ValveTime. Get it?
That is true, actually. Yeah, that's probably our own fault for putting that in the slogan.
Thank you, John. You bailed me out. I had no excuse ready, but we can always use that one to rely upon. The general question I was sort of going to go down the lines of was, you know, obviously for people that have good PCs, I recently rebuilt my PC as well. So us three have very good PCs. For someone who can't afford that, perhaps I'm looking for the person this is meant for. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's obviously not meant for us three, but there must be people out there who perhaps prefer consoles. But they're quite a lockdown system. Perhaps people's eyes have been opened to the concept of Steam and being on the PC, that you don't have to necessarily take that role of having a lockdown system. A SteamBox is going to be far more open, as Gabe said. James, are you back?
Maybe.
Maybe. James, I had a question for you.
No, I'm back.
I was going to say something, but let James speak first, and then I'll say something.
Yeah.
I want to make a major announcement that my Chinese food smells really good.
James, my question for you is how good your PC was, because obviously we determined the SteamBox isn't really something that we'd have. Our PCs are too good. So is your PC any good?
It's not terribly great, but I mean that's not why I like my PC, and I feel like that's the reason why I won't really like. I don't have a purpose for having a SteamBox of any kind. It's this weird combination between like this plug and play, just go casual aspect that they're going for, and the much more like I guess what people would consider hardcore, although I don't really like those two terms, casual and hardcore. But like the idea that a hardcore person would be like, you know, tricking out their PC tower, like throwing in a whole bunch of new hardware into it every like couple months. Because you have the ability to choose more than one SteamBox, you pick what you want for what you need. Like, if all you're gonna do is play Plants vs. Zombies, you're not gonna need something that has like a really intensive GPU inside of it. Whereas if you want to be playing Half-Life 2, you're still gonna want something that's somewhat hefty so that you can actually run it.
That's from a hardware perspective, though, isn't it? I mean, what about? I know it's not black and white, like you said, in terms of hardcore and not. I mean, do you mean, like, what about from the software perspective, in the sense that it's open source? You know, is that more of a hardcore thing? You know, like where people can mod things and change things?
Yeah, I would say like the idea between like the Wii was supposed to be like a much more casual thing. That means the games people can just kind of jump into. They're not all that complicated. You know, they're easier to access. The operating system on the Wii was very, very simple, like very intuitive. So you just hop in and you get it. Like, you don't have a lot of menus on the Wii. You have a grid, and it has everything you can do on this grid. If you go to an Xbox or a PS3, you have like 2 or 3 layers of menus that you actually deal with just to do very basic things. And so you can kind of see the difference between the Wii trying really hard to be as simple as possible, and the other consoles just requiring a higher level of interaction to get it to do what you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is kind of a like where the SteamBox will be is kind of in between those two areas. It can probably be as simple as you want it to be, or it can be much more complex.
Yeah.
So you could get something that like you could maybe try to get a setup which would be for your grandmother, and you basically just like you just throw this thing at her, and like she'll be able to figure it out if it's simple enough. Or for people that, want to be playing modern games against friends in their living room, but don't want to go for an Xbox or a PS3, then you would have the SteamBox as an option, which then you also get the benefit that you can play it in your living room, you could play it on your computer in your bedroom, you only have to buy the game once, the developers don't have to port the game from one system to another.
Yeah.
And so, like, but there's still a level of involvement that most people would probably consider as hardcore as opposed to casual.
Absolutely. And I mean, what's really interesting about those different ends of the scale is how you're going to actually be able to translate them across all those different areas and customers with whatever handheld, whatever input device is going to be as well. We've talked about this in the past, and we've seen some of the images of potential controllers that Valve started looking at. I think they recently said that the new controller they're potentially looking at would have a touch screen on it or something like that, almost Wii U mode-esque.
Gabe said the other day something about what was it? What's the phrase he used? It was when it's responsive to your like heartbeat, your touch,
biometrics.
Like the biometrics.
Biometrics, that's it. Yeah. He was talking about that's going to be the kind of main thing about the Valve only, the flagship one, is it's probably going to have a controller like that, which would be really interesting to see, especially for games like Left 4 Dead, which were kind of developed with it, and you can actually they'll probably integrate just as part of the game, so is it like an on-off option?
Sounds very ambitious. I'm not sure how central that's going to be to.
And I feel like other companies have tried to do similar things. Like I know that I'm a little out of it when it comes to like the console stuff, but I feel like there hasn't really been an adequate replacement for just the controller. Like when the Wii came out, when the PS Vita, anything that had like these motion control things, it was described as like this big huge step forward in how you interact with your games. And yet every single time I've played those games, yeah, they can be fun and they kind of add stuff, but they've never, for me, replaced just having a controller that is very physical and responsive.
Yeah.
Anything that involves like motion, it feels very inconsequential because you're just flailing your arms about, and if the console decides that you did it correctly, then it happens, but there's no other feedback to it. And I feel like in general, like all of these big controller advancements really just never seem to pull off what I would feel with just a regular NES controller.
Well, it's probably more that I think developers are trying to innovate in the wrong areas. Like that was the problem with the Wii, where they were going, oh look, it's very family friendly, yada yada yada, but nobody really asked for motion control.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever thinking, oh, I want this game to be more, responsive to my physical, movement, sweat. Somebody just wants to play sitting on a sofa, eating a bag of crisps, relaxing. You don't want to be sitting there, swinging it backwards and forwards, which is why I'm more open to sort of biometrics, because it's, just automatic stuff, rather than, something like a Wiimote.
It's also the question of innovating forwards or backwards, because you have to remember Steam's back catalogue is pretty much its selling point at the moment. It's the amount of games it has had over the years. So do you go ahead and say this is what we think the future should be and innovate something new, as in we've just been talking about motion control, or do we say, well, we've got 2,000 games on Steam, or whatever it is now, we should be working on making sure those are the most
ported over,
well ported and well supported, whatever format we go forward with. I don't want to have something which is going for, I want something which will let me play what I've already got to the best of my best of the capabilities on whatever box they bring out. So I'd be interested to see, as it goes further down the line, what sort of price points we're going to see varying models being at. The one like for your grandma, like you said, James, or the one that's for someone else's a teenager's birthday. There's obviously going to be a different scale there. Yeah, fingers crossed we'll see some more.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that the first initial price point for a SteamBox was possibly $1,000.
Yeah, well that's the one it's based off.
Yeah, it's like, but consoles are nowhere near that. Maybe we're just seeing how much a company will actually sell at a loss, like how significantly they're willing to make that cut. But or at the same time, maybe that's what people are, thinking that the next generation of consoles will be worth.
Perhaps, yeah.
And I believe Gabe even said that there are going to be like 3 different tiers, though, correct? Like for low, medium, and high. You're right.
Good, better, and best. I think is the words you used in the Verge interview. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. Perhaps we'll throw it out to some people. How much would you pay? What sort of price point would you be looking at for it? I think 1,000 is quite a lot, but it would be interesting to see what the viewers, the listeners would pay for it, and if they'd be interested in one. But yeah, let us know in the comments below what you thought of this episode, what you thought of for the concept, and give us some feedback. And ask us also what else you'd like us to talk about, what other subjects come up and you'd like to hear us talk about in the future. So that's pretty much it from us, guys. You guys want to say bye, and we'll get. I
think James should say bye. He does it every week.
I think
you know what to say, James.
Yeah.
Go on, James.
Bye for now.
It
It seems really weird when it's just out of the blue, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might notice he's nothing without a script, everyone. He needs a script.
I do. I can't do this. This is awful. Just someone tell me what to say.
It's improv, James. Jeez.